Good evening. I'd like to call the March 12, 2025 Town Board meeting to order. Ms. Marco, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Dodson?
Present.
Mr. Mastriani?
Present.
Mrs. Galucci's absent. Mr. Schlag?
Present.
And Mrs. Collins?
Present.
4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Ms. Marco. A quorum is present. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Dodson, will you lead us?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now open privilege of the floor. Ms. Marco, is there anyone who wishes to speak?
Yes. Jeff Smith?
Wait, just a simple question. I'm Jeff Smith.
If you could just let us know your name and your address.
Jeff Smith, 807 Twinsburg Ave, or Road, Schenectady, New York, 12306. I had the unfortunate happenstance of starting a small fire on my property and getting insurance companies and contractors to work together to fix it has been trying. But going forward, my dad's old and he may pass soon, and the property may fall to me, and at that point I'd like to invest money in it. But my dad got me scared about, oh, the town's gonna take them over anyways, and they're going up for Shellmont School. So at what point, I wanna know if you guys are gonna take over the properties or in front of Shellmont High School, is it worth my time to invest in it?
Could you stay? Our meeting shouldn't last long. We
Yeah,
get maybe
no.
some more details from you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, Molly?
Closing privilege of the floor. Our first resolution is Resolution 117 of the year 2025. The clerk will read.
Accepting town board meeting minutes.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Galucci's absent. Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
Mrs.
Oh,
Co-
I'm sorry, I have to abstain from that one.
Abstain, right?
Yes,
I thought so.
I wasn't here.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
So 4 yes, 1 abstain.
Resolution passes.
Actually, that's
It's
3 yes.
I mean, 3 yeses, I'm
One
sorry.
absent, one absent.
Dear Lord.
For the students in the classroom, he has to abstain from the vote because he was not here at
Yeah.
the last meeting, so he
Right.
can't vote on minutes that he didn't participate
Right.
in.
So 1 absent, 1 abstain, and 3 yeses. Thank you.
Our next resolution is Resolution 118 of the year 2025. The clerk will read.
Adoption of the Curry Road and Guilderland Avenue multi-model study recommendations for multi-model infrastructure improvements.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Galucci's absent. Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. The next resolution is Resolution 119 of the year 2025. The clerk will read.
To adopt the ADA transition and evaluation plan.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Schwab. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Galucci's absent. Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution 120 of the year 2025, the clerk will read.
To authorize the purchase of 1 police vehicle.
Okay, is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Schlag. Do I have a second? I'll second. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Galucci's absent. Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution 121 of the year 2025, clerk will read.
To negotiate and execute a lease with purchase option from the John Deere for 1 loader truck at the Highway Department.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Glucci absent, Mr. Schwab?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution 122 of the year 2025, clerk will read.
To negotiate and execute an agreement with Rand Window Fashions for the purchase of window shades at the senior center.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Will Mr. Schlag make the motion? Do I have a second? I'll second. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Glucci's absent, Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution 123 of the year 2025, the clerk will read.
To establish capital project expenditure line H134 Water Improvements Water District Number 5.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Schlag. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Glucci absent, Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes and 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution 124 of the year 2025, clerk will read.
To establish capital project expenditure line H135 Town Court and Police Facility.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Schlag. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Glucci absent, Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution 125 of the year 2025, the clerk will read.
To negotiate and execute an agreement with B&D Industries, Inc., Pump Process, Inc., and Coaster? Is that just-
Kester.
Kester?
Yep.
For startup of the Mission SCADA at 3 pump station locations.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Glucci absent, Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution 126 was tabled during the agenda session. Resolution 127 of the year 2025, the clerk will read.
To accept revenue for the town clerk's office for February of 2025.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Schlag. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Glucci absent, Mr. Schlag?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes, and that concludes our resolutions for this evening. You guys picked a great.
Yes.
really
Excellent,
good one.
excellent.
Okay, we'll now move on to liaison reports. Do any of the board members have anything they wish to say under liaison?
Let's see here, yes, liaison report, just an update on our water capital project. We did have a pre-construction meeting today for contract number 1, site fill, and that's for water district number 5 and our future well number 6.
Anything else under liaison? How about under miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous, I see our ornaments, our snowflakes are still up.
Yes.
Is there, do we know when they're coming down?
I would assume since we have to rent the scissor truck to take them down, that they'll probably wait until the weather's a little better to put up the banners for the
Hometown
March
heroes.
1st.
Whole
Yeah.
time, okay, very good. So what are we thinking, probably April?
I'm
Because
thinking in
starting to
April.
get questions.
Yeah, I would say probably in April.
Because Easter, holidays are coming, or whatever, we're still
It's supposed to snow tonight anyways.
Yeah, that's what I'm here. So we're good.
We're not out yet.
Yeah, dusting, nothing like that.
I know.
Anything else under miscellaneous? Okay, then that concludes our business for tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I will make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
Second. I'll second it.
Second by Mrs. Farr. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's